What's up, everybody? This is my jointer bench. It is rigid, it's solid, it rolls, and it's almost entirely made up of construction lumber. Let me show you how I did it. Okay, so I have the lumber here. I've chosen 4 pieces that I'm going to be using to make the legs of this bench. So I want my bench to be 26 inches high. I'm going to cut it at 31 inches so that I can deal with the planer snipe later. Let's do it. First I'm going to square off the ends of them, and then I'm going to set up my stop block and cut them all to the length I need them. Protect yourself. Okay, so now that I cut them all to length, let's cut these big boys right here to match these little guys right here. They don't have to be exact. They're all going to be milled down in a few minutes. Okay, so the next step is face jointing these pieces so that they fit tightly together. Now this isn't necessary. If you don't have a jointer, that's fine. You can just, as best as you can, find the flat sides of them, put some glue on them, clamp them together, but I have a jointer, so I'm going to joint them. So let's joint them. Now I have jointed all of the faces on one side of each one of these pieces of 2x4 here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue the jointed face to the jointed face of another one to create these nice, solid, heavy-duty legs. Alright, so these are glued. Now we can wait until tomorrow to take them apart. A couple of days has now passed. I can now take these legs out finally. These legs are looking pretty good. So now what I can do is I can face joint the long side of them, and then I can edge joint using the face that I just jointed against the fence, and that'll give me a square on one side. Then I can run them through the planer and get perfectly square legs. I don't even know if I showed you how much work went into doing that, but it's not easy getting it perfectly square. This one's not, so I gotta keep on going with this one. One of the edges of this piece is squared up. I'm going to go ahead and square up the rest of them. Okay, so now that one corner of each of my legs is square, I can go ahead and I can throw these through the planer and bring the entirety of these legs to square. Okay, so I have finished milling up all of these legs here, and now you can see that I have very square legs. Let me see if I can get that on camera. Now I can go ahead, I can take them over to the miter saw, and I can cut them to the length that I need. I want to make these legs 23 inches long. So now all of my pieces are milled and squared. I can set them up on my workbench exactly how I want the layout of my bench to be. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to account for the width of my tabletop, of my bench top, which is going to be 13 inches. It's going to be 13 inches wide. I want half an inch of an overhang on both sides of the table. So I'm going to take a measurement for 12 inches, and that would be the width of the base of my table. So as for the bench top is going to be 35 inches long. Again, I want to account for the overhang. I want a half an inch overhang on both sides of the tabletop of the bench top. I want to take 1 inch off of 35. So I'm going to measure across here to make sure it's 34 inches. So now I have the rough shape, what I need. Now I just need to measure the gaps in between, and that'll give me the length of the skirts that I need. 6 and 13/16. And for the length, I need 28 inches. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut 4 of each of those measurements, 2 for the top and 2 for the shelf on the bottom. Okay, so I found these pieces here. They're perfectly straight, so I don't need to actually mill them at all. I'm going to cut these to the length that I need for the top skirts, and then whatever I have left over, I'm going to rip it down to a smaller width, and then I'm going to cut those for the lengths that I need for the bottom skirts. Let's rip them down now. So these are all 2.5 inches. These are still 3.5 inches. And I also ripped 2 strips exactly 1 inch wide. These pieces are actually going to come into play on the bottom shelf, and I'll show you when we get there. Alright, so I'm going to throw pocket holes in all of these, but I'm using this little Craig jig here. The harder to use one. So let's use a little bit of magic and get it done super quick. There we go, all done. So I put it on the ends of these thinner pieces. I put it on the ends of these wider pieces that are going to be going on the ends. And I put it on the ends and the tops of the top skirt pieces. These ones are going to be used to fasten the bench top to the actual bench. Let's go ahead and assemble the top, and then we'll move on to the bottom afterwards. So we can put these ones to the side. To assemble pocket holes, I'm going to need a few things. I'm going to need pocket hole screws, glue, and an extra long bit on my drill. Can you even see that? And a clamp. I highly recommend a clamp. Makes it a much easier time. Don't forget a square. You're definitely going to need a square. A carpenter square. Big one like this. Let's put some glue on this, and then we'll clamp them together. What the hell, big boy? The lid wasn't on properly. Okay, so I'm going to put some glue on the sides of these, and then I'm going to screw them in with my pocket holes. Screws. I don't want too much squeeze out, and I don't need much glue in order for a nice tight bond. Tight bond? So I'm going to put them in place. I'm going to make them flush on the outside. This is the fun part of woodworking. Making sure everything is square. If it's not, like if you put it on and it doesn't look perfectly square, what you can do to keep it square is you can actually take another clamp and you can clamp your carpenter square, just checking the top to make sure it's still flush. Now I can drive my screws in. Now I can go ahead and I can do the other side, and then we can attach them together with the side rails. I'm going to put these pieces on with the pocket holes facing up. Up being down, because I'm assembling it upside down. In case you were confused. Sometimes it takes a lot of clamping power to make sure everything is straight and square. So now that everything is assembled square, we can figure out the height that I need for the shelf that's going to be on the bottom. I want 1 inch of space underneath this. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to cut 1, 2, 3, 4 1-inch pieces from this. Okay, so I got my 1-inch pieces cut. So there it is. There is my table's carcass. I can use these pieces for the next step. So the next part of this build, I'm going to have to take these pieces, the thinner pieces, the 1-inch wide pieces, and I'm going to actually place them like this. This will leave a little gap at the top here for me to take the shelving and place it on top of that. I'm going to glue them, then brad nail them into position, and that's where the shelf is going to go. So I have this piece right here, which is just 2 boards jointed, glued together, and then I ran it through the planer to give me a perfectly smooth finish on it. I didn't do this in this video. This I just had in the shop that I had already made. So I need this piece to be exactly 32.5. I'm going to cut off the area where this planer snipe is because I can see if I measure from the screw holes here to where the planer snipe is, I have 33.5. So I'm going to cut off the planer snipe, and then I'm going to do the final piece, and I'm going to cut off the end to give me exactly 33.5. Sorry, 32.5. So I have never used this track before. I just got this. This is the Craig track to turn your regular circular saw into a track saw, and it's very square. Yeah, that worked. That's really square. So now I'm going to rip it down to the width that I need, which is 10.5. I'll cut it off of this side because I don't know if you can see how it's been joined, but it's closer to this side. I kind of want it to be a little more in the center, so I'm going to rip it off of this side. So now that I got it ripped to 10.5 this way, I can take it over to my miter saw and I can cut it to the length I need it to be. Now I can mark out where I need to cut off the notches for the legs. So the easy way to figure out how you're going to cut your notches is you get a combination square like this one here, and you push it up against the leg, let the ruler come in and touch the skirt. You want to keep it loose, and then when it touches the skirt, you tighten it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this measurement over to the bench, and I'm going to transfer this measurement onto the bench. So keep in mind I measured this way. That's how I'm going to put it on the bench. So here I have the slab for the bench. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up my combination square onto the edge here and put a mark. Now I'm going to do the same thing on all the sides just to make sure it's all the same. And it looks like it is. So I'm going to take this same measurement I have and I'm going to put it on all of the sides. Now I loosen up my combination square. Now I'm going to push the combination square in until the combination square is tight against the side of the leg. Move in the ruler until it's touching and tighten it down. So now I can take that measurement and transfer it over to the slab. And now that I have my marks, I can put the lines down to mark exactly where I'm going to be cutting with my bandsaw. There you go. If you don't have a bandsaw, you can always do this with a jigsaw. So I'm going to bring this over to the bandsaw now. Actually, no, I have a really small shop. I'm going to bring the bandsaw over to me. Okay, let's do it. So now that we have it roughly cut out, let's test fit it and see what we can do. I forgot to glue one of these. Oh man, that's very tight. That's good. That's good. I like tight fits. So I'm gonna take a 16th off of each of the ends here, and I'm gonna run it on the table saw and take a 16th off of both sides, and then we'll try to fit it again. All right, let's try this again. There we go. Now for the top. I've already made the top. That was also part of a last project that I was doing, but I never ended up putting it on anything. So this is the top that I already made. I put a nice chamfer on it. Now we can just line it all up. I already said I wanted all of the overhangs to be 1/2 inch. So let's set my combination square to exactly 1/2 inch, and then I'll go around, set each and every single one of these corners to exactly 1/2 inch. Now I'm gonna clamp my top on all the way around. By the way, I know I didn't show you how I did the top, but it's exactly the same thing that I said before. I just jointed 2 boards and then I attached them together in the middle with glue. That's it. I didn't use anything else, just glue, and then I clamped them all together just like I did with the legs. And then I ran them through my planer and then put a chamfer around the edge. Alright, this is coming along nicely. I am almost done. Now I just want to clean up these. I want it to be flat, so I'm going to use a bit like this. This is a flush trim bit. The bearing is going to ride along this piece of wood right here, and it's going to cut off all of this excess that's sticking up above it. It's perfect, it's smooth, look at this. Perfect. Now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use a chamfer bit to chamfer all of these edges, and all of the feet. Very important to chamfer the feet. I am actually going to drive a couple of screws through the bottom here to pull this shelf in tight, because I did notice it is moving up and down. I'm going to countersink through my little rails that I built to hold this shelf up, and then I'm gonna throw in some screws. Before I put this back up, I want to chamfer everything. Now I'm going to use the router around the inside of these openings. Almost everything's chamfered. The only thing left to chamfer are these legs, the sides here. In order to do that, I have to take the top off. Alright, everything's chamfered. Now, I just need to sand it. I've already sanded this top piece after I made it. I sanded it down so it's nice and smooth, so I don't have to worry about this piece. I do have to sand this, but this is going to be a really long and boring process. So let's just cut to the end, shall we? I forgot to mention, I'm going to be using this to do all the big, wide surfaces, and I'm going to be using this to do all the fine details. Let's do it. And that's it. It's finished. Now you can put the top on and be done with it. Or you can stain it. If you're going to stain it, use mineral spirits to wipe it down. That gets all the fine dust off of it. Then use wood conditioner. Because this is pine, if you put stain on without a wood conditioner, it's going to become blotchy. Wood conditioner will make sure that the stain goes on even. But what I'm going to do is, I have this in my shop, and I accounted for the height of these casters. But I have a problem. They don't fit. So I want to make sure that my casters can sit on these. So if you remember at the beginning of the video, I cut 1-inch pieces. Actually, it was like halfway through the video. I cut these 1-inch pieces to measure out how tall this is going to be. Well, I'm going to take these same 1-inch pieces and I'm going to put them on the inside of these legs. That'll give me the secondary spot where I can screw these into place. So this will work perfectly to hold them down. It's not very pretty. Just make sure you take your measurements properly at the beginning. Oh well. This is just for my shop. If you got to make alterations, you got to make alterations. Life is what it is. Okay, I'm going to fasten these in, and then I'm going to screw these casters on. I'm just going to fasten these using pocket hole screws and a washer, because that's all I have. I don't have a very big selection in this shop right now. Alright, so now that that's done, I can put the top on. Now for the moment of truth. So there it is. My mobile jointer station. All done, set up and good to go. I just have to find its permanent home. But for now, I'm happy with this build. If you liked this video and you thought it was helpful, don't forget to hit the like button. I got a lot of projects coming up, so I'm going to be coming out with a lot more videos. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you can be notified as soon as they come out. But in the meantime, I'll see you in the next video. Peace!